welcome to Rainbow History class, the queer and trans history that you don't get in school. My name is Rudy Jean Rigg.
And my name is Hannah McElhinney, and it is good to be back for another episode.
I'm excited. We recorded last week and we've backed it up again this week. Normally we don't record that. I would say that often, but like we don't record every week. I'll say that.
That's true, except for when I'm late and we run out of our studio time and then we need to do another session, which is all on me last week.
Okay. And this week you said, today you said, hey, Rudy, make sure you're not late. I get here on time. And then you say, hey, I'm 10 minutes away. All right, cool. You'll still be here on time. 25 minutes later almost, you come in with a acai bowl and a coffee.
I also have had quite the week.
Yes.
I'm really excited because I have made my TV debut on Sky News this week.
I'm so excited for you. You really took the bullet for me, I feel.
It was great. So this is off the back of our episode on queer time, which you can just scroll back and take a listen to if you want. It's an episode that we're really proud of. And there was a video that I did that went viral on TikTok and Instagram and was subsequently picked up by first our favorite libs of TikTok.
Shout out libs of TikTok. Yes.
The libs of TikTok. They sent it around their channels where it was picked up by none other than Sky News, who featured this video in full, thankfully, on a segment that a Sky News Australia does called Lefties Losing It.
Wait, really? That was the segment?
That's the name of the segment. But the funny thing is that in every...
You're right-handed.
Yeah, and in every segment, it's the host losing it over queer or trans people just making TikToks.
That is so funny. Actually, I think it was from the same segment that we cut the opener of our TED Talk to, because we used a segment from Sky News to open our TED Talk about the pronoun they, and I feel like it was from that segment.
It was most likely from that segment. It was somebody who takes a real issue with us for some reason. She's an Australian woman by the name of Rita Panahi. Shout out, Rita. I'm going to play you a little bit of what she had to say, which I think is really funny.
Have you ever considered that time itself could be transphobic? You better throw away your clocks, because this next lass claims that queer and trans people actually experience time completely differently.
Did she say? Did she? I swear she said, throw away your cocks.
She did. She said clocks.
Sorry, she needs to work on her broadcast.
She said throw away your clocks, which is hysterical. Also, I'm kind of into it. My other favorite thing is she really doubled down calling me a lass, and I presume that is because something that happens in these circles is they assume everybody is trans. So they've called me a lass, I presume, to kind of hammer home my gender.
I feel like she's gone for like, it's not man, it's not woman, it's a secret third thing, and it's the lass.
It's the lass. And you know what? It's the most comfortable I've felt with a gendered descriptor of any of them. I like lass.
Gosh, thanks, Rita. You really did, Hannah.
I know.
Solid.
I like it. And then on the libs of TikTok, they referred to me accusatorily as a trans activist. So what is so wonderful about this is I actually feel more seen by the alt-right than I do by most of society.
Oh my gosh.
And get this, I'm going to read to you. The comment section appear to be accusing me of being like Kamala Harris.
What?
As in the vice president of the United States, which is very, very funny because I think for them, that's the biggest insult that you could give anyone, to be so left as Kamala Harris. And I was offended because how dare they call me as right-wing as Kamala Harris? I don't think they know how left you can go.
I feel like they don't know their rights and their lefts, it sounds like.
I don't think they do. I'm like, Kamala Harris as an accusation. I'm like, yeah, that's mean.
That is mean, yeah.
I'm not about cops.
Yeah, it's like calling a shark a dolphin. They may both live in the sea, but they're vastly different species.
Yeah, gosh. So here we go. And then this person just said that woman is very sick. Again, true.
It's true.
So incredible, incredible stuff. And then I want to just play you how it rounded out. which is another great soundbite.
There you go. You learn something new every day. Didn't know queer folk were prevented from working and retiring.
Wait, we are though.
I know. So she's obviously learned something. She needs to listen to more of this podcast.
Oh my gosh. I wonder, should I just tweet her and just say, hey lass.
Hey little lass, have you checked the laws?
Yeah. Check the laws recently. Oh
Currently in Australia, there's a bill that allows, you to fire gay teachers from private religious schools. So that would be a current example. Anyway, thanks, Rita. So anyway, that's what's been happening this week. So it has made me feel a little riled up.
Oh, yeah. Every day I've been getting texts from you like, looked at this avocado wrong in the supermarket. I think it's after me. I'm like,
So here we go. I feel like what I've got in store for this week's episode is actually a 2-part episode.
ooh.
Yeah. Because as I started going through Pandora's box, shout out to Pandora, turns out it's got a lot inside.
Wow. I wouldn't have known that, but not by the descriptor of.
I didn't mean to sexualize Pandora, but
What? Wait, did you?
I was talking about her box.
Oh.
Anyway.
Sorry. So it went over my head.
I saw Chappell Roan at the governor ball.
That American thing that they do with the musicians.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, I love anything that she does, but I was flicking through the comments section and it was just endless comments that all said mother is mothering.
Oh, we're on different sides of TikTok. I'm on the side of TikTok that's all of these conspiracy theories that she's actually like cosplaying. Yeah, cosplaying Miss Piggy.
I think she
is. And if she's not, she better fucking start.
I think it's quite clear. With this Muppet smoke, there's Muppet fire. So I'm just picking up the
Whoa.
clues.
Whoa. No violence against Muppets in this studio. Take that back. We already saw what happened to the Wallace and Gromit factory.
It's true. Look, I'm sorry, Miss Piggy, and I'm sorry, Chappell. Please continue down parallel paths. So mother is mothering is basically all I saw in the comment section. And it's coming off the back of just more and more people, further out from the queer nucleus of these communities saying things like mother is mothering and calling everybody mother. And so I thought that it could be interesting to do a deep dive on what does it mean to speak gay?
Tell me.
And I will. I want to look at, this idea of, speaking gay and where did it come from? Let's get into it. And like I said, this is a 2-part episode because there's just so much here that I'm really fascinated by. Okay, queer people have often been stereotyped by how they speak. And I want to know from you, Roo, if you think there's any truth to stereotypes in general.
Well, I think stereotypes, there is truth to stereotypes, but I think I've spoken about this before. Stereotypes are such a flat, like often like one-dimensional view of like a little ecosystem of a world. So there is truth to them, but it's like, I don't know, it's a bit of like an Ouroboros in that like I feel like stereotypes start as accumulation of truths and then they get flattened and then that does become the truth and then, you know what I mean? It kind of goes around a little bit.
Absolutely. No, I feel like that's exactly where we're going to go with this because there is truth to stereotypes, I think, but not universal truth. I think, they're obviously built on something, but that doesn't mean that they should be applied to everything.
Yeah.
So obviously a lot of queer people, trans people don't adhere to stereotypes of the way we are depicted in popular culture to speak and communicate, but a lot do, judging by the mother is mothering comments on these Chappell Roan clips. So the way that we speak in particular for gay men, and this is lifting off, you did say that I have been getting my lesbian stories out like too close together and you were worried I'd run out. So this one's for the gay boys.
Okay. All right, good. Let's go.
In particular for gay men, this way of speaking has been used as a way to identify with community and queer culture after coming out. It's that nature or nurture thing. We don't know whether or not gay men are putting on a gay way of speaking or were they previously putting on a straight way of speaking.
It's kind of, to me, if we're talking about gay voice, right? Like quote unquote, to me, it's like, is it just like, you know how in, for some reason, like Vietnamese as a language comes up because I know that like North and South have a really different dialect. Is it like similar to like a dialect like difference in the like, you know, you might be using the same words or even like the same sort of sounding words or written words, whatever, but it just sounds different. And, you know, if you live there for long enough or whatever, you might pick it up and then you can't get rid of it or whatnot, you know? Is it similar?
Yes.
Okay.
And it is. I've got a lot of interesting new words to describe exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
So when we unpack this in the spirit of specificity and, you know, not continuing stereotypes with blanket generalizations, I want to break down the concept of speaking gay into two components and also acknowledge that when we talk about speaking gay, which is the term that I've decided to use for this episode, it does apply to trans, lesbian, bisexual and people as well, anybody that falls within, you know, an umbrella of queer or trans identities, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And so the two components that I'm going to talk about, the first is what we say, and then the second is how we say it.
Great.
Right? And of course, within that, I'm going to talk about this essay. This essay will then talk about why we do these things. But I'm going to start with the how we say it part for the first. So do you want to hear a joke?
Please.
It's homophobic.
Even more better. Hit me.
Okay, I heard this joke from someone who was homophobic and he thought it was very funny. And hang
on. What?
I'm going to say this homophobic joke because it probably is in the spirit of something that queer people would reclaim.
Okay.
It's not objectively, you know, bad. But here's the joke. What do gay horses eat?
Hey.
Yes!
I heard that before. I swear, that they've stolen it from someone.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I feel like this is funny to us as well as to people that laugh at us. So therefore I'm going to continue it.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about is a two-part intonation. Hey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about this speaking gay or how we say certain words, we're talking about things like intonation and pronunciation, which is exactly what you were talking about, you know, with like Vietnamese and how it's spoken in the North versus the South.
Yeah.
So there's that. And when we look at this, it's also important to say, because I'm not fluent in Vietnamese.
Neither am I.
Or other languages. We are talking about English and the way that it is spoken by predominantly white men.
Yes.
Of course, people of all races who speak English can do so in this way, but this is something that has been built upon by white gay men in popular culture.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of it is the gay lisp.
What? There's
Have you heard of-
No,
Yeah.
I've never heard of this.
Really?
No.
A lot of people talk about the gay lisp, which is a lisp, the idea of saying the sound as
Wait, like a forced, like, because I kind of have a lisp. I don't, what?
that is a real phenomenon.
Wait, can you put it in a sentence?
So people will say, what's up with the gay lisp? And I think a lot of people criticize gay men for speaking in a way that has a lisp. Now, what we're actually talking about is known as the frontal articulation of the S sound.
You like push your tongue.
Yeah, a
harder
lot
against-
of people have lisps because they have, you know, speech impediments, and there's sort of a bunch of physical reasons for that.
Yeah.
But it sort of seems that with gay men, we sort of can't call it a technical lisp because often it is acquired.
Is it like kind of like rolling your R's?
Kind of, but there is this idea, you know, that gay men might pronounce things like, I don't know, give me a word that starts with S.
Slip.
What a slip up. Okay?
I'm sorry.
Now I had to do that.
Like-
I had to do that because you were not getting it.
No, well, I just kind of like, I didn't like, I feel like I've never heard that before. And I laugh because like I felt like I was watching a theater performance from you, but like I've never heard a gay person put that into their dialect. They're like kind of like way of speaking.
Interesting.
I don't know whether it's my age. I don't know whether, I mean, to be really honest with you, I don't actually have a lot of friends who use any queer vernacular at all, like really. So maybe that's just like deep another group that I'm not part of.
I also think it might be an age thing because of popular culture. So shows like Will and Grace was one of the very first mainstream pieces of gay representation on TV. And Jack, he spoke with what you would describe as a gay lisp.
Wow. Okay. Do we know why it came into like fashion? Or
Well,
something?
it's interesting because when I'm talking about the frontal articulation of the S, we're also talking about pitch fluctuation, hey, and a nasal vocal style, which is something that also is attributed to gay men. And there's been a bunch of theories about this ranging from, that gay is an innate nature, so you're born gay. And then, there's the nature versus nurture. So some people have said, and these are legitimate kind of academics and medical professionals have posited that queer people might have a gay lisp because they have different shaped heads.
All right. We bring it back for phonesiology or what? Phrenology, sorry? Or
I think that's doesn't sound very legitimate to me. And this is something that's been suggested over the past. I think we've really put to bed that kind of nature versus nurture debate.
Like, who gives a shit?
I think that's what we've come up with, is that no one cares.
Yeah.
That was just the different shaped heads is funny because I have also never met another queer person with the same shaped head as me.
Okay, we've had this conversation because you and I every year we go, should we shave our heads? And then you go, I want to, but I could never because I have an ugly head shape.
No, that's not true. I have a great shaped head. The reason that I can't shave my head is because when I've done that before, I have curly hair and for like 9 months, it just pubes out like Ronald McDonald.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, that part of that was.
But I'll have you know that underneath this, there's an exquisite dome.
I think I have a good head shape.
I think you do too.
I feel it in my bones, literally, because the skull is a bone.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not really sure about the different shaped heads theory. I'm pretty sure there's no like evidence to back that up.
No,
but there is some academic rigor around the gay lisp because there's a study from 2008 that actually found that 42% of American men who self-identified as gay had a lisp.
Where were they from?
America.
No, like what part of America? There's a lot of different dialects.
I think
an accent.
Trans-America. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Now I'm getting nitpicky with the substance of this study.
I have to say that I don't have any more details about the location of the participants in this study, but 42% did have a lisp.
Okay.
So more likely, and this is, I guess, the most accepted explanation for the way gay people speak or the gay lisp, is this idea that gay men have been copying the speech patterns of girls, and that's either subconsciously because maybe gay men grew up relating better to girls and had more female friends and hung around them, but they had a lower voice, so that was just them absorbing that collective way of communicating. But it also could have been because of gender dysphoria. So it was something intentional, which is something that they saw in the study and other subsequent studies around like trans youth, trans feminine youth who would come with this particular type of speech as a way to kind of feminize their vocal tone.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting because I know I've had like issues around this. Like I went and saw a speech pathologist maybe 2 years ago. Basically what happened was when we did our first year of rainbow history class, like I was like recording like hours and hours a week, and we were doing lots of like random gigs, and I don't know, I was just talking a lot. I was still coaching badminton and a lot at the time, and I actually very badly like damaged my vocal cords, and I never told you this, but I really should not have been speaking for a long time. But anyway,
oh my God.
So I ended up having to go to a speech pathologist because they were worried I would have nodules or whatnot.
Oh my God, nodules. Every time I hear the word nodules, I think of in Australian Idol 2003, there was a contestant who was in third place called Cosima DeVito, and she had to leave the season because she had nodules. And that's just a fact that's stuck in my brain for like 20 years.
Wow. I mean, listen, it's pretty like, it can be pretty bad. Like if you don't get it seen to, like it can damage your voice or, you know, really cause a lot of issues. Anyway, long story short, I went to the speech pathologist and we did a lot of like testing on my voice and my vocal range and the strength of my voice and whatnot. And what we discovered was that I was actually forcing myself, like I'm doing it now. Like this is technically out of my range. Like this is it's mostly probably because my voice isn't that strong, but like this is too high naturally for me. But I do it out of like over practice in this range because it's like, did you know Jesus was gay? Like it's kind of in that range that I always used to do like the videos in. And also like it's where my voice used to go. And it was fine before like HRT affected it because this was like in my previous like natural range, but it's just too high now. Like, but it's really hard to stop because if like I drop it.
Yeah, if you were to drop it into what
like,
would be a healthy, more comfortable range.
Yeah, like this is like comfortable, but it's not as strong. This is more comfortable, but I tire quicker so I can't talk as long in this range. That makes sense. And so like for me, some situations like it just gets painful because like I'm talking too long and I do need to do vocal warm-ups and exercises. But in the case of like being out in the world, like I might not feel comfortable like if I was in a dress like high femme talking with such a low range. And so I would like default to this and be like, hi, like, you know, and it's like kind of like a safety thing.
Yeah, I know. I have seen kind of you code switch in that way depending on where we are and based on because every time we go to Sydney, everybody keeps calling us ladies. And I'm a lass now.
You're a lass.
And you're neither. Yeah. So I think, I have seen you as we move through different environments where you might feel more or less kind of safe or affirmed. Yeah, you code switch in that vocal range, which I think makes sense. And it also makes sense that if you had a low voice as a result of, you know, going through puberty as a male, then you would employ different techniques to feminize your voice, like speaking in this affected way.
Yeah. And like sometimes you just want to like on some level like assimilate to the group that you're in or the group that you want to be part of. And so like voice and use of voice is like one of the ways that we communicate. And so of course, like if we're thinking about, oh, well, I'm going to hang out with all my friends who wear pink, I'll wear pink. That's one way to communicate something. And then using your voice is another way to communicate something. So I can totally understand like the concept of it.
Totally, which is interesting because, you know, it's kind of, that's how you get into that self-fulfilling prophecy that you were mentioning earlier, which is when we see gay men on TV speaking in a certain way and we then come out and we want to identify with this culture or this collective, then we would reinforce this particular way of speaking as a way to kind of create that sense of belonging as part of a group.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is that's really the Jack from Will and Grace effect. And I think as well, you know, like not to bring this always back to the lesbians, but I am sort of talking about it in terms of gay men, but I do see a similar thing in terms of like lesbians speaking in that masculinized way. It's something that you might see when we talk about Hey Mama lesbians, which is like the newer phenomenon, but this idea of kind of lesbians adopting a sort of stereotypical smooth man way of speaking.
Yeah, I can't even replicate it, to be honest. Like I can't even like put it
It's just
on.
Very like, hey baby. It's just very bad. Hey, well, it's hey mama.
Hey
like,
mama. Hey, okay, explain this to me. All right, speaking about code switching your voice, why is it when you're out and the clock like hits 11 p.m. or the girls have their 5th margarita and then all of a sudden they're ripping out the English accent? What's that about? I get accused all the time of like, oh, you speak in a weird like hybrid accent. Shut up, I'm autistic. Tell me about those girls that just like hit their 5th drink and it's 11 p.m. and they start going, oh yeah, love, give me your vape. Yeah, thanks a lot, governor. Like,
I think that's something that happens in Australia. Like, I'm not sure if that's like an international thing. Please tell us if it is, but I know exactly what you mean. I feel like I do it as well.
No, you do?
No, I feel like I do it. I'm a real accent copycat. So if I'm with someone that is British, all of a sudden I'm speaking like this, you know, like it's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
If I'm hanging out with a New Yorker, I'm like, no way. Like, no, like what? I'm like vocal frying. I'm like being guttural. I'm like That's crazy. No, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a real
Yeah.
copycat subconsciously.
My sister, I'm sorry, I'm roasting her, but she does that. Like, we'll be out and like she'll just turn into this English person, and like we're English, but like not that part of England. I don't know where she's coming from.
Not Essex.
Not Essex. Like, it's just weird, but I see it talked about quite often online, and I don't think anyone's really. I don't know why. Maybe it's just like easier. The Australian like pronunciation, I do find, I don't know.
I do think something, you know, as not that I would adopt anything, but I do think that around queer spaces or queer friends, I become more Australian. There is a sort of a masculinity to, I think, Australian lingo, especially when we say things like, all right, love.
Yeah.
Or like, chucka sa blah, you know?
We never say either of those things, Hannah. What are you talking about?
Not you and I, me.
Really? Your friends are out there saying like.
No, but when I'm in a queer space, I probably feel more comfortable to be, or I put on this affected kind of jokey thing where I'm talking in a really like awkward way. Because I think it's funny and it's fun, but I think it is sort of, it's something that I mainly do when I'm around people that are adopting or playing with language as queer people.
I feel like I do the opposite in that, like, if I'm comfortable, I will like stop self-checking how I'm speaking, and I will end up like doing that weird like hybrid accent. I don't know. Some people call it the autism voice dialect. Lord knows. But I want to do it now, but it's just
I'm waiting for you to do
like,
it.
I want to say things like, do you know what I mean? Like in there. And like that sort of stuff's like in my vocabulary. And like I've always said that sort of stuff. But I do feel like I check myself when I'm not with people that would understand that it's not a bit. Like,
yeah, no, I understand. And I also think it's hard if you're a mimicker, you know, like I am. There's not heaps of Australian films and television shows out there, and we've been raised on British and American stuff. So it obviously there are words that come through that, do you know what I mean?
I want to do voice acting so bad. Like, I'm just like biting at the bit. I just want to like play around, have fun, you know, and then like voice a character. That's just
all right. If there's anyone casting voice acting, let's get them to hit us up. All right. So that's kind of how we say things.
Yeah.
And I think the way that we code switch using our vocal style is something that just doesn't get spoken about as a positive or interesting thing. It's almost always a critic. Like, since you've come out, you now speak like a gay person, or you've changed, or you know, we're made fun of in a sense, rather than seeing it as something really cool that we do and that everybody does to kind of find belonging and shift between groups. So now let's look at what we say. And to start, I want to tell you a word.
great.
Shibboleth.
Shibboleth. Oh, wow. We got another lisp in there.
Yeah, this one does have a lisp.
Okay.
Shibboleth.
Okay.
So the word shibboleth comes from the Hebrew Bible, and it refers to a word or a phrase that reveals something about a group the speaker belongs to. So it's exactly what you said, the way that, you know, in your Vietnam example, but the way in which you might pronounce a certain word might say if you're from the north or the south. And it sort of comes from the Hebrew Bible. The word was pronounced differently by different groups of people. And so that's why it's caught on. Now, I'm going to dive deeper into this, but first I'm going to ask you to spell my name.
Your actual name?
Just my first name.
Hannah.
Okay, now I'm going to spell it.
Okay.
Hannah.
Okay.
Can you tell the difference?
Yeah, you pronounce your H's differently.
Right. Now, Rudy, has your family descended from Catholics?
No. Well, probably because we're kind of like, we've got some Irish in there, but.
Irish?
Yeah.
All right. So you would say there are people in your family that might have been Catholic?
Actually, I don't know. I don't really, if they're Catholic, I wouldn't know, but yeah.
Okay. My family, like, and I'm talking non-practicing, but my family would have Protestants.
Oh, yeah.
Through the lineage, right?
That's that to me, that I feel like I've heard that word in reference to my family, probably. Yeah. Okay.
So, but when you say the word H,
yeah,
or the letter H, that is a way of a way that Protestants say the letter, whereas
H.
Catholics say H, and it comes from Ireland. So, for example, when Irish people came to Australia, they were Irish Catholics and they were not treated in high standing when they got here because Australia was colonized by the British, which were Anglican or Church of England, Protestants, right? So you had a group of people that came to Australia and they said H. The Protestants said H. And then there was this whole thing like throughout teaching and stuff like that of how you should teach children to say that letter.
Yes.
And it was always that it should be H, but H was considered a lesser or I guess a sign of someone who was less educated. Now that's changed and now they are both equally valid because obviously that was all because of prejudice and things like that. So that is an example of a shibboleth where, you know, if someone says H, it's more likely that they have descended or they've moved to an area with a lot of Catholics, you know, in Australian history. And H, you probably moved to an area where there were Anglicans or British Protestants, that kind of thing. So that's a shibboleth.
Wow.
I just thought that was cool because I have never confronted you with recognizing that we say it differently. It was only when you were recording the audiobook of the Rainbow History Class book and you were talking about HIV and AIDS that I heard you say HIV, and it was then that I did a Google just to see what it was, and both are legitimate.
Yeah.
And so then I did some digging and found out that that is a shibboleth. So a shibboleth is something that is not necessarily intentional and it doesn't necessarily mean anything. It can, but it's just the way that you say something that can give a clue about some group that you know, belong to.
How do you say France and like dance?
That's another great example. So I say France and dance.
See, now getting that pronunciation out of my mouth pried off my dead body because I cannot physically say it. France. Like, ew.
Yeah, I say
It
France.
sounds right. Like not when other
France.
people. Well, see, when other people say it, it sounds fine. It doesn't hurt my ears. But even making that noise, it makes my skin crawl. I have to say it like France. I don't know. It like comes out of my like tubes better.
Now we've established that. I want to talk about something called a furtive shibboleth.
Okay.
Now that's a shibboleth that is intentional. So like a password or a code word.
Okay.
And that is very important to queer communities and trans communities because they are an intentional word that reveals something about ourselves, but people that aren't part of that group wouldn't be able to understand.
And we're just talking about pronunciations.
No. So we're talking about
language.
a word or a language.
Yeah, cool.
So can you think of one that's important to the queer community that is a code word? Have you learnt the script to our live show?
Yeah, friend of Dorothy.
Exactly. And then another one that was big in TikTok in like 2020.
What, like a phrase?
Like a phrase, like a question.
Like, do you listen to Girl in Red?
Yes.
Yeah.
2 out of 2. Incredible. So both of those are furtive shibboleths. So friend of Dorothy did obviously come most likely from The Wizard of Oz, and Do You Listen to Girl in Red is a reference to the Norwegian singer. And both of these are coded ways to ask if somebody was queer. So dropping one of those words was a great way of just identifying each other and communicating without outside eyes. You could also drop a word from a secret language. And so what's really cool, and I know that you love this. I know who doesn't love this, but the idea that there are entire languages just built of furtive shibboleths. And they exist not just among English-speaking communities, but all around the world. So there is Polari.
Yep.
That evolved out of a whole hodgepodge of different languages.
Yeah.
Sailors, thieves, sex workers, and gay men. But it was really like the gay men that took it and ran with it.
Yeah.
And that was sort of developed in the late 1800s to early 1900s.
Yeah.
All right, pop quiz. Tell me some words in Polari.
Zhuzh.
Yes.
Naff.
Yes.
Wow, I'm really using my rote memory here. Face.
ECAF.
ECAF. Yeah, that's it. What else is there?
Eek.
Dolly.
Dolly.
Dish.
Yes, a dish. Calling someone a dish is actually from this secret queer language, Polari. And what's interesting is that there are so many others. So there was one called La Bunya.
Oh, is it Turkish?
In Turkish.
Yeah.
So Labunya is a Turkish queer language that emerged in the late Ottoman Empire.
Wow.
Was spoken by predominantly gay men and trans women sex workers.
Yeah.
And then there was Gael.
Oh, yeah. Wait.
Not Oprah's Gael.
Gael is African?
South African,
South
yeah.
African?
So it's built on Afrikaans. This emerged in 1950s from the coloured community, I should say there. When I talk about the coloured people, I'm not referring to people of colour. This is an ethnic group specific to the Cape, the South African Cape.
I was going to say, what a strange way to phrase it, Hannah.
Yeah, yeah, no. They are an ethnic group.
Yeah.
Specific to the group's often referred to as Cape coloured.
Oh, cool.
A specific ethnic group to South Africa.
Yeah.
And they started and built this language, and then it evolved to, be spoken by all different queer and trans people. It was in the 1950s, so that was in the time of apartheid.
Wow.
Then, of course, there is Bekimon or Beki, which has also been known as sword speak, which is still spoken in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And I think what's cool is that all of these languages emerged at different parts of time throughout different parts of history where the persecution of queer and trans people was very significant and very high. So we needed these phrases, secret languages, code words, or as I've now learnt, furtive shibboleths.
Yeah.
To really be able to get around and identify each other for safety reasons.
Yeah.
And these languages, there's no way they could really have cross-pollinated.
Yeah.
They were built on different languages that people didn't speak. So they've all emerged in isolation. And even more than the fact that they were all needed and developed, there was also heaps of similarities. So between all these languages, and there are many more, there's ones that have come from Indonesia, from Morocco, just, so many. But what's really interesting is that one, they're all full of innuendo. They're all really camp. Camp is from Polari.
Yeah,
they're all
Polari.
very camp. They're all full of innuendo. They all will make references to women's names.
Yeah.
In the case of Bekimon or Sword Speak, they'll use words like Janet Jackson as a code word, whereas in Gael, Betty Bangles is that means the police.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so you needed to kind of speak if the police were around because under apartheid, homosexuality was a crime.
Yeah.
You could have Agatha, that means a gossip.
Okay.
Auntie Ada was AIDS, HIV and AIDS.
Oh my God.
You could call someone Bella. The word Bella means to bash, hit up or beat up.
Whoa.
Yep.
Okay.
The word Carol means to cry.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're just having a carol.
Yeah. And then again, you could have, everything was really intersectional. There was the word Daphne, which means deaf, and Delilah, which means delightful.
Oh, cute. Okay.
So there were just so many women's names in this, and then, often celebrities' names. You would say in Polari, your Dolly Old Eek, which is lovely, Dolly meaning lovely. So again, completely separate, different periods of time, way different parts of the world, but so many similarities in the way that they're used, the way that you drop a word identified you as part of a group. And then even so far as to say there was so much innuendo and there was so much campness throughout all of them. And then obviously there's women's names. So I just think that's wild.
It's funny because they're such colorful language. Most of the time they're so colorful, and it's kind of heartbreaking when you really think about the fact that they did sort of become established in times of mortal peril, and still we were kind of just no, we gotta have some fun with this, guys. Let's what's the the nicest sounding things that we can say? I don't know. It's nice, but it's just, I don't know, when you think about the reality of it, I do get a bit wow, woo-wee mama.
I think the beauty and my favorite thing about who we've been throughout history is that we've always had our personality, and we've always had humor, and we've always had fun. Regardless of the outside forces that are trying to shape us. And I think as we move through what I would say is another conservative swing culturally in the Western world, we need to, again, continue to maintain all of those things that do make us really cool.
Yeah.
And if we are retreating into those insular circles and communities and languages, I'd be interested to see, how the way we speak does change over the next couple of decades. But that is where I want to leave it because I do have a part 2.
Okay, I'm excited.
I know. So stay tuned for part 2. But in the meantime, you can keep checking us out on social media.
Yeah, you can check us out on social media. We love hanging out on Instagram and TikTok, but the Discord's actually started to pop, which is really cute and I love it in there. And also check out our Patreon because we are putting up some new stuff there. We spoke about having a newsletter a couple of weeks ago on the show, and we have decided to sort of make that newsletter part of our Patreon. And so that means that you don't have to go anywhere. Just head over to Patreon, sign up. Don't worry if you can't do a paid tier at the moment. Just sign up as a free member and you will still reap the benefits or some thereof of the paid tier. So that's cool. And we're so happy to be able to do that for our class cuties over there. Have we got any other news, Hannah? I don't think much is going on.
But if you are interested in just hearing some real life queer vocal fry, you can listen to our audiobook of the Rainbow History class book.
Oh, yeah.
Written by Rudy Jean Rigg.
No, I didn't write it.
I mean, written by me, read by you.
Yeah. It was, wow, I actually missed that. It was a lot of fun. It was very therapeutic and meditative for me. So yeah, hurry up and write another book, Anna. What can I say?
I will. And you can hear Rudy pronounce H's at the start of my name.
No.
And everywhere else we use that letter. But until then, we want to leave you with another reminder, the same as every week, that not everything is gay, but there is gay in everything, including shibboleths.